The Shift podcast, Perspective and Our Power to Change, invites us to expand our lives by changing the lens we see through. Is something different calling you? Do you ever ask yourself, is this all there is? Or have you forgotten why you're even here? Trish and Diane create insightful and empowering conversations about connecting the self, soul, nature, and community. Navigating life by choice rather than circumstance is how we make the shift to expand our humanity. The shift starts now.
And the shift starts now. Welcome in everyone to episode 28 of the Shift podcast, Perspective and Our Power to Change. We're part of the Transformation Talk Radio Network, and I'm your co-host Trish Campbell, along with my good friend Diane McClay. And we're here with episode 28, I think I said already, but continuing our conversation from our last episode, which is about we're the change we need right now, and nothing changes if nothing changes. So first, as always, I want to start off by acknowledging the land on which we all settle. For myself, I'm in Mississauga, Ontario, and that is the Mississauga of the Credit First Nations, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Ojibwe Chippewa. And whether I've named everyone in this area, whether they're named or unnamed tribes, I want to honor their connection to Mother Earth, their stewardship over millennia, and the wisdoms that they share and hold and share with us, and that they're there for us to lean into. And just so grateful for that, and to be able to come to you today because of that opportunity. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Diane.
Yeah, I mean, as always, it seems like we've been doing this for over a year now, and a reminder that nothing changes until you start changing your perspective. And your perspective is the lens through which you see things. And so as a white person with privilege in my life, it's easy to overlook how I got here, whether it was my parents and my grandparents who worked hard, or whether it was the Indigenous and First Nation people who were residing on the land before they got here. Everything has been taken and given and earned in some fashion, and I'm not judging. I'm just saying that, this land that I do business from and that I live on was owned by someone else prior to me. And I think it's important energetically to remember where we came from. So I'm in the Pacific Northwest in the Columbia River Basin between Portland and Hood River. And the tribal people that I like to just give a little shout out to who are currently residing in the area are the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, the Lower Chinook people, the Upper Chinook people, the Wishram, the River people. There are a lot of bands that are not named in the legal recognition. And so energetically, we'd just like to thank them for being present and continuing to be stewards of the land that we serve on. And we hope that at some point in time, they become named.
Yeah, thanks for that. I also want, something you said too, it reminded me that I always want to take things a step further. We're always learning stuff and then applying it. And we're always talking about that. So being the example of, to remember that, to not just acknowledge this, but that land was stolen, and that, we're benefiting from that, like you said. So
right.
To continue to open up the conversation around that, because it's all, we're all connected. And I think that's why we want to talk about what we're talking about today, especially, last time we talked about, that we're the change, taking personal responsibility in different ways, and the different intersections of, environmental justice, of economic equity, and social justice, and all of these things have multiple intersections. And I think, we want to dissect that and break it down and go down some of those specific channels. And, you and I both have a very special connection to the land and to being in nature. And so it's important to us, and just not just to have the awareness of it, but to apply it in our lives, like increasingly all the time, finding new ways to have this be part of our lifestyle. So.
Well, you just mentioned something, and I want to call out to our listeners that right off the bat, I'm going to give you 4 A words that are all very distinct and have a very different connection. And the first one is awareness. You can't
Mhm.
make any kind of change. You can't affect any change until you have awareness, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first one. And awareness is different than acknowledgement. It's one thing for us to make a land acknowledgement to the tribes and the people and the bands of individuals who resided on our land. But the next thing is taking action. And that's one of the things that we're starting to
Mhm.
do. You and I both have made contributions to some charitable organizations in order to kind of literally put our money where our mouth is. But the last one is so awareness, acknowledgement, action, but then you have to, it's not an A word, it's integrate. I forgot the word I was going to say, but you have to be able to always move into the next thing that you've learned about it.
Right.
Knowledge doesn't mean anything. Apply. That's the word where I was going. Knowledge
Apply.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything if you don't apply it in some way, shape, or form. So
Right.
awareness, acknowledgement, application, action. And that's the four things. If that's the only thing people remember from the show today, it can be applied to any layer of their life.
Yeah.
Specifically, you and I are talking about taking some personal responsibility and not just waiting for someone else to clean up the beach or not just waiting for someone else to outlaw plastic bags. You and I've made some conscious choices about how we want to contribute to the earth and how we want to try to protect the earth. And I think that's one of the actionable things that we wanted to talk about today.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things, you just, and it's not like we're talking about this, you have to go out and do everything we're saying, or we're not, we're just like sharing some ideas around how you can implement in baby steps and make, that's where the change happens, in those smaller steps, and they become your habits and part of the way that you live, and it just becomes part of your mindset. So gosh, like I think about, and I wasn't always, so connected to, making the connection of my consumption, and then, my footprint on the for the earth. And so it's been a gradual learning, and especially, I live in a city where we have like recycling programs, so there's bins where you can recycle, for example. But a lot of times, like, questionable stuff gets thrown in there. There's not, we don't really take it a step further and really learn what can go in there, and are we just, is it ending up in the landfill anyways? So I mean, that's like the broader picture, and that was like my introduction to kind of recycling as part of my lifestyle, was like living in where it's kind of, again, that's a situation where you're kind of waiting for the government to implement a program, but you don't, like, why we're talking about this is you don't have to wait for the government to do anything. Like, what, in any regards, we're talking specifically about the environment and sustainability right now, but so I, and I look back on how I've evolved in that journey, and a lot of it has to do with my kids, because my kids are in their 20s. They're of that age where it's like they're just so wise, and so like they have a future to protect. So they have a vested interest in this, and we, you and I are like Generation X, where we kind of just went with the flow. We didn't question the status quo. So it's like this, but I know you specific, I'm talking in general, you specifically did. But so, and I think about changes that where there was resistance in myself too. Like we were talking about it earlier this week, and we have really moved away from a lot of not only um, what would you call it? Just like overly produced products where there's a lot of plastic and a lot of chemicals and all of those things that contribute to deterioration of the earth, to more sustainable, more natural products, which are not only better for us, but better for the earth, and don't contribute to a growing like landfill situation, for example.
Well,
So
and we're not perfect, right? And
right. Oh, not by any
we're not
means.
monks living at the top of
No.
a clean mountain with where there's no impurities whatsoever. But even to that point, I mean, we're hearing science is starting to tell us that they're finding microscopic particles of plastic in the tallest peaks of the Alps, in the Andes. We're finding it in animals. And if there's a biology person out there, I mean, there's studies that are shown that a large portion of the invertebrate sea creatures are starting to somehow absorb minuscule pieces of plastic. So plastic isn't completely evil, right? But I think that the conversation I would like people to start having in their homes, and before they go to a market or before they just do their regular, routine, is to start bringing that consciousness into the choices they're making. And I think
Right.
sometimes convenience is it's a plus and a minus, right? We have convenience stores. Well, food is more expensive at a convenience store because you're
Mhm.
paying for the convenience, but you're
Right.
also paying for something that could get thrown away. So I think if we start taking some personal responsibility and we think before we act, and we say, okay, is there one thing I can do differently today, and start making a habit out of it? For example, just in general, I stopped drinking soda, right? So
Mhm.
that's healthy for my body. It's healthier for the earth. If I do feel like I would like to have a soda, I'm trying to be more conscious about going to a place that has a fountain soda where I can take a stainless steel container, put it on their fountain soda, and I'll pay two-thirds the price of what I would pay for a plastic, prepackaged, mass-produced corporate product kind of thing.
Mhm.
So I think that when we've been in a society for so long where convenience has not only been it's been culturized, it's been grown, it's been obviously it's been made a commodity. Like, hurry up and get this now. Fast food,
Yeah.
convenience stores, take and go type meals. And I think that we talked about putting the pause into our language and into our actions at some point in time to take care of our personal selves. And I think putting that pause into how we go about our regular routine is the first step to starting to take pause and then personal responsibility, and then making conscious choices about things that we remove from our product cycle or things that we incorporate into our product use.
Yeah. I just want to go back and back up on what you talked about, the soda reduction, you stopped, and then if you do have it, you take your own reusable container. And that is, I think, one thing that's easy for us to, if you're not already doing it, if you're somebody who, buys a 24 pack of water bottles at Costco, or probably shouldn't be naming out companies, but, but you know what I mean? And I've been guilty of that before too. We haven't bought water bottles in years, like pre-COVID, and I don't remember when, but I mean, it's a process of, it's a habit. So it might be like an extra step you have to take. And just like any habit, you have to be consistent with it. But it's like, like I said, it becomes your mindset of doing that. And when you're doing that and you're using, your reusable coffee mug when you go to Starbucks or whatever it is, you're not only helping the environment, you're helping yourself too. Because to back up also on the plastic thing, that, we're not finding plastic just in sea animals like fish and, animals that are washing up on the shore, and they're, finding plastic inside of them. We're consuming plastic.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my son Devin and about this exact thing, and I should have went and researched it before our call or our show, because I would really like to know the source of this. But he said that he was reading somewhere where we consume a plastic credit card worth of plastic a week on average, which
that's
is
that's crazy.
ridiculous.
Well, and if people are concerned about that, they need to do the research. And this
Yeah.
is where I'm going to bring it back in, right? We're not the experts, but we're just trying to change the perspective and ask people to slow down and pause and think about what they're doing.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm reading a book right now. It's called Life Without Plastic.
Mm.
And it's amazing how you can't get away from plastic, even if you try. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, short of like living on your own farm and
Mm.
growing your own animals and growing your own food and making sure that you are the source of your product consumption, it's almost hard to get away from it. But just one tip I would tell people, and True Earth is not a sponsor of our show. It's just something that I personally use, but it's a Canadian-based company, and they have figured out a way to put laundry detergent that doesn't have phosphates in it into little small sheets, like less than the size of an envelope. and
Mhm.
it comes in a box, and they're telling me that this box that I'm holding up right here in front of me, it can take 384 loads. You know, is it a little bit more expensive compared to your convenient supercharged, you know, phosphate filled plastic containers? Yeah, it is. But for me, I feel like that I'm willing to pay that cost, because if I don't, I'm going to pay a bigger cost later on down the road, either in my garbage bill when landfills close up, um, plastic stops getting accepted somewhere in a recycling stream. Sooner or
Right.
later, the bill is going to come due.
Yeah. But I mean, but it goes back to what you were saying about the convenience aspect, the convenience store aspect. You end up spending more when you're paying for convenience too. So it's kind of like washes, balances each thing out. If you're gonna maybe spend a little bit more on a more conscious decision that's better for you and better for the environment versus one that harms both, like long term. And I think, in preparing for our discussion today, I was like really thinking about like different ways that that we can make change, or that I personally have. But one of the things I think, and I want to tie it into everything we always talk about, because and us taking personal responsibility and not waiting for to be told, okay, this is the way we're doing things in society now, but to be the leaders in that way, is that I think why it's a hard step. Like we live in such a materialistic based world where it's just like, oh, my TV broke, I'm gonna go, you have a new one by the end of the day. Or I have 10 pairs of sneakers in the closet, or what. I don't, but I'm just saying, that's maybe at one time I did, but I've really, changed you really realize, how much, you don't really need to be like to live your life. It's all the things that make us overconsume. Like maybe that is something that is, tying into this as well. And what was I going to say? The much like a lot of the things that we talk about that get kind of suppressed and hidden in our society is like things like recycling. I mean, now it's bigger, it's become more and more prevalent. And but it's almost become like a political, there's a political nuance to it as well. But partially because it detracts from, people will say the con of that is it's a negative impact on the economy. But it's a negative impact on the economy for who? For
Right.
the big guys. So
Right.
it's like, here we go again, talking about personal responsibility. Like, what are the choices you are making in your life that are actually benefiting you? And why are you doing what you're doing? Are you going out and, buying all the things that maybe you don't necessarily need, and, contributing to the economy that way? But so it's, you go down a path, like you can, it's all comes down to your choice in the moment.
And I want to tie that in, because I think I think the more conscious choices you make about your consumption and your product use and how it affects your environment,
Mhm.
both locally and globally, I think it's kind of like a cycle. The more connected to the earth I am, the more conscious about the products I want to become.
Yeah.
And then I choose to become more educated in one way and then another. And then the next time I go out in nature, I actually feel almost like I'm more connected to nature than I was the last time. I'll give you a quick example. I'm going to ask our listeners this question: how many people go on a hike and see litter in the parking lot
Mm.
or on the trail and walk right by it? Not my problem, right? I didn't leave it there. Somebody else will come by and pick it up. I'm sure it'll go away eventually. And
Yeah.
my challenge to people would be, is here's another simple thing you can do to really feel connected to the earth: is take care of the environment that's immediately in front of you in the moment that you're in it. I did a hike the other day, took a trash bag with me. I had a pair of rubber gloves with me, super easy to put in my backpack. I picked up 7 water bottles, 2 soda cans, countless cigarette butts. And my heart felt sad, because in this particular area where I'd hiked before, I'd never seen trash before. So someone else is coming into an area that I love, and they're leaving things behind that are now impacting my experience. So if I do my part to remove that negative impact, then someone else is going to be more connected to that space, hopefully.
Yep.
And then hopefully someone else recognizes that that area was pristine when they came in, and they'll be more responsible to take care of it as they're using it. Like, to me,
Right.
that's a circular energetic
It's
cycle about the earth, and regardless of whatever your political beliefs are, or what product you
right.
use.
Yeah. I mean, I have stories too. Like I remember walking on the beach one day with somebody, and he just decided to start, we started seeing stuff laying there. So we started picking it up, and then we came across this older woman, and she had a couple garbage bags full of garbage, plastic stuff. And so we started talking to her, and she said, this is my backyard. It was the beach. Like, she lived in a condo that was across the street or whatever. And she's like, I see, I can't believe that this looks like this. And in the moment, I kind of thought, or we thought, like, people actually come here and then make the choice to leave their garbage here on the beach. But it's also the stuff that gets blown away out of the recycling bins that makes its way into the lake and then washes up on the shore. And so all of these things, so it's not, there's so many different ways that, like you said, when you're walking in nature and you see, a can sitting there, like, are you just going to walk by it, or are you going to pick it up? Even if it's like in COVID times, or like, I'll pick it up and, go throw it away, because I think somebody made a conscious decision to, like, this is sacred land, and they were sitting here. The can, this happened like a couple weeks ago. The can of Coke was sitting on the ground, propped up. There's about a third of it left. So somebody, just set it down and then decided, I'm not going to pick this up, or I'm not going to take it. And it's like,
And maybe somebody forgot, right?
maybe,
But the forgetting part, I want to tie that back in. The forgetting part is not being present. It's not being connected at the time. I mean, how many times have we left our keys in the car, right? It's because we were distracted. We were thinking about something else, and we weren't present. We weren't focused on what we were doing at the time. So, in the few minutes that we have left, my request for people today is, it's summertime, it's picnic time, it's barbecue time, it's spending time with family. We're going to spend more time outside than we typically do in the winter. And my ploy, my request, my begging of the public is to start planning ahead and put a little bit forward thinking into how you can contribute in a positive way. And at the bare minimum, don't contribute in a negative way to your natural surroundings, your environment, and, to the routine that you have with your product selection.
yeah. And even to take it a step further, when you're, going back to the True Earth example, like, that's not only a company that you're buying from, that you're doing your part, but that company is doing their part. I think they're one of the B corporations, which they have like a special certification of, reducing emissions, and I can't remember everything that falls under that, but so you're not only maybe making decisions that your personal consumption, but what are the companies that you're putting your money to, giving your money to, what are they doing as
Right.
well?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to promote another one. And if there's a representative from any of these companies out here, and they feel like they want to step in and, put a sponsorship in behind our show or any other TTR shows, reach out to us and we'll invite you to do that. But I'm buying toilet paper from a company called Who Gives a Crap. And I know this sounds funny to talk about toilet paper, but literally they say on their label, they say, please do more ones and twos. 50% of our profits donated go to other places to help build toilets and sanitizing water situations. So,
Yeah.
A necessity that I have in my life, it's bamboo toilet paper. It comes in a paper wrapper. It's not plastic. And they've committed 50% of their profits to helping other people who don't have the privilege that we do with, good sanitation.
Right. So yes, another company that comes to mind that I bought my daughter a phone case for her birthday. And, phone cases are another big thing, because we all have a phone and they don't last very long. But there's a company called Pella, and they make plant-based phone cases that are compostable. So,
Nice.
And yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but again, it's a trade-off. It's a choice in so maybe consume a little bit less somewhere else, or less at the convenience store, or and like I said, it's a gradual shift to make those kinds of choices.
Right. And tying it into the shift and perspective, you and I both say that the show is about perspective and our power to change. And the shift starts with you and I. It starts right here today, right now. The minute the show ends, the shift can start, and it needs to start with you. We're going to have to wrap this conversation up right now. But if we've sparked anything in you that makes you want to challenge us, we want you to reach out to us. You can get me at dianemcclay.com, and Trish, they can find you at your website.
This is trishcampbell.com.
Right. And if we said something that inspired you, we want to hear the same thing. Right. And the challenge to our listeners today is do one thing and make it a habit, and make the shift start with you so that you can affect a positive change in your environment and in your world around you. Take personal responsibility. It's only up to us.
Yeah. It all begins and ends with us. Thanks,
Anything
everyone.
else, Trish?
No, I think that's it. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and take care of each other and take care of the earth. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Shift Podcast, where perspective and our power to change intersect. Slowing down to look at things from a different angle is necessary to affect positive change. You hold the power to transform yourself and your life. It is already inside you, and it's within reach. Clarity comes from awareness. Momentum comes from choice. Healing, growth, and transformation happen on the Shift Podcast. The first and third Fridays at 12:30 p.m. Pacific. For more information, go to invibe.ca or dianemcclay.com.